professional intro. It's a good start. Yeah, Taz, do you want to give us a quick brief on... This is our first Growth Army podcast, but there's been a couple of trials before. Do you want to touch on them?
Yeah, so first on, I thought it would be clever. Host a space at the same time as hosting a podcast. We had pretty much zero prep. I think we had a few bullet points written down of one thing. I was in a cafe at the time and it was pissing with rain. And I was like, fuck, I'm going to have to just run it. So I tried ordering a few taxis. It was none of them came in time. And then eventually I was like, you know what, it's calmed down a bit. I'm just going to sprint back to the flat. I've got 10 minutes before this whole thing kicks off. So in my eagerness, open the door of the cafe, fucking pace it towards my flat. It's about a 7-minute walk. So that I could run it in like 3. After like halfway there, like I don't fucking recognize anywhere. Realize I've ran in like the opposite direction. Sprint all the way back. Anyway, we make it back in the flat in time. Get going with the podcast, only for there to be a storm. And mine and Glenn's Wi-Fi was fucked, mine in particular. So the video podcasting bit completely failed. And then space was going okay-ish, other than us sort of cutting out here and there. And then I just couldn't hear anyone for a while and we crashed early. So we went again then on Monday, just a few days later. And after doing it, realized how little we knew about podcasting. Dom absolutely rinsed into us. We had no structure again whatsoever. So after that little test run, third time lucky, here we are.
Yeah. And that's true. Like you two live in the nomad lifestyle now out in Vietnam. I'm stuck here in Wales. Like it's actually sunny here, so I'm not complaining. But you guys actually met up today. Did you, Glenn?
Yeah. Yeah, we met up. I got a taxi down to meet Tats. Brought Abe with me as well. Yeah, it's nice. A few beers, a few drinks on the beach, chilling, talk a bit smack, get a few pictures for the timeline. I thought of a funny picture, funny caption for the picture. I'm going to put just carving up Rome.
Carving up Rome. Man, I was getting massive FOMO when you sent that picture in the group. Must come out.
You all right. We need to do some meet up.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start with, there's been a bit of theatre on X this past week, possibly the biggest L of the year. I'm going to give a quick summary of it and then you can add your thoughts. Or I'll go through each section and you can give your thoughts. So this Jan guy put up a post and it was a selfie of him and his girlfriend on a plane. And then he had the Hormozy podcast on his phone in the picture as well. And he shares a story about him ignoring her and focusing on the Hormozy podcast. And she was like trying to get attention, saying like, would you still love me if I was a worm and stuff like that. I thought it was a bit cringe at that point, but nothing more than that. And then I realized he got ratioed in the quote retweets, right? And he was getting ratioed hard. And some of the stuff was like pretty brutal. So I felt a bit sorry for him and his girlfriend at that point. Yeah, so if we go to that point, how did you feel at that point before anything else that happened afterwards? Glenn?
Like you say, it was just a little bit cringe, no harm intended, of course. And then, yeah, getting hard ratioed in the quote retweets. It's pretty brutal, but that can happen. Like if you put something out and it's perceived as like a bad take or a little bit cringe, you can't be surprised when like bigger accounts come in and then start, it's social media at the end of the day. You get anons, they can abuse you. It's just part of the game. Like up to that point, I was like, I feel a bit bad from here. A little bit of a cringe post. You don't deserve that level of abuse, but
yeah. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't wish it on anyone, right? Yeah. You get that.
Yeah, because I know like some people were like, oh, like such a like twatty post or something, like really, really going at it. But ultimately, it was just a bit cringy. You're kind of just like, it's a bit fucking sort of like, I don't know, someone comes and like high fives you weird. You don't like hate him. You're just like, that was fucking weird, mate. Why have you done that? And to be honest, at this point, I didn't even know that this was even going on. I only heard about it later on after you guys were chatting about it.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about it, and if that was me, I'd either probably delete the post as soon as I started, like, the ratios getting hard, or just leave it and just move on, just leave it, take the L, and move on. But then there was more. So the next day, and this is where I think it turned into a big L, which was he started to claim it was all planned and, like, the art of influence, triggering people on purpose, sort of, like, mass controlling his audience. I mean, to me, that feels like a stretch, but it's like your audience puts their trust in you and you're saying you're manipulating them in public. It's not a good look. And then like Dakota and Kieran Drew and stuff got involved. But that's the meat of it. So at this point, like, what was your thought process there, Glenn?
It's like Rocky and Apollo Creed. Like he gets to like round 6 and he's a bit beaten up, but you know, they start wanting to throw in the towel, but then he just goes all out and just is like, yeah, it was mass hypnosis, mind control, whatever you want. Just, you know, when you lost and everyone's seen you lose, like you've lost face, I know, and you've got 2 choices. You can either own it and move on, or you can keep fighting it. But when you start digging that hole, like he was trying to dig his way through the center of the earth and out the other side, I think, at that point. So yeah, bad move, lost a lot of face, I would say. Not a great play. If it was me, I would have deleted the post as soon as I started getting ratio, probably. I definitely wouldn't have pretended it was mass hypnosis.
Yeah. And he had that thing of, like, he's got 3 leads from the post. What do you think about that, Tats? Glenn's face.
I mean, like, overall, it's like imagine like you get nominated, or like you go up to like score a penalty, and then you fucking like smack it, and like it's a terrible shot, like it goes like flying over the bar, you full on Harry Kane it. And then, like, the next day, instead of just being like, fuck, boys, I fucking missed that penalty. Like, yeah, to be fair, like, everyone has a bad day sort of thing. But, I mean, like, it's everyone, right? And people would be like, yeah, fair enough, mate. Like, it was just a cringy post. You missed the penalty, get over it. Like, there'll be another match next week kind of thing. But then he's, like, brought attention to the fact he's missed the penalty. He's like, nah, boys. Like, trust me, like, this is a master plan to, like, see what the crowd would do or something. Well, like, see what this would happen to, like, oh, I'll get loads of, like, followers or shit like that. And then I think it's at that point when it's, like, you've had, like, I don't know how many hundreds of people quite retweeted it, slamming it, versus how many people have liked it. You're sort of just, like, social media is kind of brutal because it's, like, everything is there for you to see. Like, it's kind of like, if you're running a business, you'd never see, I think it was shampoo, they were just talking about this recently, you would never see, like, you wouldn't click on a Shopify store and then see, like, all the revenue numbers there. But when it comes to like social media and content, like you can see everything. Like you see how many people liked it, who quote retweeted it, who's commented on it, and everything like that. And so I think like when it's so blatantly out there that you've taken some form of L, and you in a sense got yourself, as you said, Dill, like anti-marketing, like more people basically going against you than you go for. Because it's like that stage of being like polarizing, right? Like everyone says like you need to be polarizing, but you only want to piss off say like 10-20% of your audience so that the other 80% of your audience draw closer to you. However, you're not going to piss off 80% of your audience and then have that 20% draw close to you, because ultimately you've just made your audience smaller, like dramatically smaller, and I don't think that makes up for how much closer they come. So whether we got a few leads from it, whether we got a few followers from it, I think ultimately, like even the fact that we're talking about it on this pod, like none of us are like, oh mate, go follow that Yang guy because of that. Like it just has knock-on effects, which are negative, which are kind of like the opposite of like word of mouth in the right way. So I don't think he meant any harm. Like obviously feel sorry for him as well. I've never actually spoken to him, so I don't know that much about him. Just seeing his tweets, but yeah, I mean I feel for him, but I think he's just gone about it the wrong way and just covering his tracks.
Just to butt in there quickly, if you really wanted leads, you could just tweet a hand raiser, no? Yeah, hey, any busy CEOs looking for a ghostwriter? DM me here. That would work too, right? Versus getting 700,000 negative impressions.
Yeah, and yeah, like Tat said, like no hate towards Jan. Don't really know the guy. Just I think there's a lot of lessons we can learn from this just situation, which is like either just take the L and don't respond to a lot of criticism, and just don't try and like hold on to something when you're losing. Just like accept it, move on.
Yeah, stop digging.
Yeah, I mean like slightly different to be fair, but I wrote a tweet that ended up like pissing off my boss and my boss's family, who I'm actually like friends with, and like it was bad. Like they were really pissed off, and like although like the tweet in itself, it had its issues. It wasn't like blatantly like, oh my god, that's awful. Like some people like, mate, that's literally fine. Like I don't know what the fuss is. Others like, yeah, I can see why they're upset. But ultimately, I deleted the tweet, and then I went and met them in person. Like apologized, said it was a mistake. Like I was never meant to hurt feelings or anything like that. And then it like resolves itself, right? Even though you've kind of you fucked up in some sort of minor way. But on the other hand, if you go ahead and you're like, oh, like why are you so pissed off with this? Like there's nothing to be pissed off. Like obviously I didn't mean this, that you like ultimately it just like causes more drama, more negativity. and it's just going to carry on for longer and probably not serving you in a good way. Oh, mate, I've genuinely fallen in love with coconut since being here. It's been one of my...
All right, so Justin Welsh put an email out, when was it, this week, saying basically that he likes keeping up with the ever-changing algorithm, and then he's given like 5 lessons of what he's learned over the last week or two. Lesson 1 is volume matters. So he said every single piece of content is a data point that I can get quick feedback on. Glenn, I know you're a big advocate of this, so do you want to give me your thought process on that?
Yeah, using it as data. I'll be honest, I've been a bit slow on my analytics these days. I used to be more of an analytics geek than I am now. And the reason I kind of changed my stance on that is because everyone says double down on what works. But I think if you write 4 tweets and then one of them gets a lot of engagement, but it's like a platitude, for example, you could say, oh, double down on what works, more platitudes, that's the answer. And you're going to get like bigger numbers, but actually you're going to hurt your brand if you just keep doubling down on what works, because you end up only posting what works. And then you end up sounding like exactly everyone else. So sometimes I'd rather just post something that I want to post that I think will be valuable for people. And then, people love it, people don't like it. So what? Like, I can't be a slave to data constantly.
Like transformation posts, that's all you post otherwise. Yeah, I mean, like when you you're looking up like profile clicks or something, it's always a transformation post. It's like, I mean, you can only post so many transformation posts before that transformation gets old and you need the next one, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's an interesting one for the data. The only ways I'd say I follow the data is with like certain phrases. When I see that they stick, I'll just reuse them. Like one I consistently use is like, your market's only saturated if you average, which like obviously the nuances to that. But whenever that's relevant, instead of trying to think of like a new sticky line or something that works, I'll just slap that one in because I know people like it and it works. And I think like, as maybe Hugh, instead of like a message wears in, it doesn't wear out. So those little slogan-y lines and whatnot, I feel like you can just keep pumping those. And then that's almost like the more useful data, because then it becomes like an evergreen line that you can just consistently use.
Yeah, love that. Okay, lesson 2 is create a movement. So big creators used to be able to tweet anything and get massive engagement. Like Aaron Will used to tweet drink water and get like thousands and thousands of likes. But now you need to move people. So like you need a tribe, group of believers, not just followers. What's your thoughts on this?
I think he's right. I don't think that advice is very good for smaller people just starting out though, because you just don't have enough clout at that point. Like you can't just turn up 10 followers and just start tweeting about, I don't know, mass hypnotizing your audience, for example, and turn that into a thing that everyone just starts believing. Like you need a bit of reputation to start building that movement. And you see a lot of guys don't start building their movement until they're quite a lot bigger. Like Kieran Drew only started coining Digital Freedom, I think around January this year, and he had about 100k followers at that point. Not to say that's the benchmark, but Aaron Will and Wiz of Ecom have just started saying death of outbound, and they have 280k and 120k. So I wouldn't worry too much about that tip. I think a lot of people are going to read that and stress out over, I need a movement. I need like this cool, I need to invent the new solopreneur. But I don't think you do. I wouldn't worry about that. Don't force it. Eventually it'll come naturally.
It's like, don't force the whole like watermelon, peanut butter, Crocs thing. Like it just comes naturally. Whereas now it feels forced. Like people are pushing it in their face and just like, it just doesn't sound right. But I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? Because it's like, going back to Russell Brunson and his expert secrets, it's like you're ultimately leading your audience, your followers, to a brighter future. And it's that bright future, which is why people follow you. And I feel like you can have that without it being like explicitly clear or tied into one word. It obviously just gets more powerful once you do that. But I mean, it's like, once again, it's like if you're trying to get everyone to like cross over the bridge to this like sunny path and you're trying to convince people that it's a good idea, you can do it before you cross that bridge. It's just a lot harder because it's like it's harder to stand out and there's less reason for people to follow you. But as soon as you cross that bridge yourself and you're like, hey guys, like I fucking did it. The bridge is safe. Here's the path. Follow me. It's a lot easier then for you to start talking about it. It's like these kids who will write on their Google Doc or whatever, like, I'm going to show you how to quit your 9-to-5 with a personal brand. And like they're either on their summer holidays or like they're still like working in like the local sweet shop or something. And like when you've got that, it's like I like you're someone who's like maybe working like Glenn, you probably worked the heftiest, like heaviest 9 to 5 out of all of us, like grinding out in the council. Like when you've got that, you kind of just like, mate, you weren't even on the same side of the river as I was, let alone on the other side. So I think in that scenario, it's a lot harder to build that movement, and ultimately you've got to start crossing some bridges. And as that happens, you'll be able to build up more of a following, more of a movement. But you can still let people know what your mission is, and it kind of does a similar thing.
Yeah. A side note: if you have a 9 to 3, don't tell me to quit my 9 to 5 career. It's just not. It's not good luck. No one fucking believes you.
Yeah,
You've still got
like
a lunchbox, taking it to school with you. Like, don't tell me how to quit my job. I don't believe you. Your little 9 to 3. I don't want to hear about it. Keep your little lunchbox.
Like
your mummy's making your sandwiches still and washing your little clothes for you. Yeah, exactly.
2
Mum's
6-hour shifts in a surf shop,
folding them up for you. Exactly. Go trick or treating or something.
Oh, that's brilliant.
I always find it's actually quite funny. Like a lot of the core motivations for these kids for doing this is to be able to tell their parents that they don't have to go to uni and that sort of thing. So like that's ultimately like the movement now. It's like, mum, look, I've made a few £1,000. Please say I don't have to go to uni and I can just do my own thing, which is like a whole other movement in and of itself.
Yeah, gonna retire my parents earning 10k a month. All right, bro. Let me know how that goes. Do you know how much a mortgage costs?
Yeah, that's the big one.
Okay,
setting goals high.
This lesson's pretty good for everyone, really. So, lesson 3: engagement counts more than ever. Now, there's been a lot of people shitting on like doing a lot of comments and just like spamming the timeline and stuff. But Justin Welsh says he's engaging more than ever before. He carves out 1 hour a day for engaging, which is a long time. Like, I don't even do that. And he says that he hasn't missed a day of engaging in 650 days, or only a few days. So what do you think about this, Glenn?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm just on Justin Welsh's social blade right now, and he's averaging...
That's where I was going.
Yeah, I've stolen
What's he
it,
on?
sorry, mate. But he's averaging 37... He's averaging 37 comments a day, and that he's increased that because I think he used to do about 20. So Justin Welsh thinks 37 comments a day is a lot. Personally, I think, more is better early on, but you should not be leaving 100 plus comments a day. Because the thing is, if you're doing that, like your entire strategy is based on just being everywhere, and you cannot sustain that. Like, you might think you can now, but I promise you do that for a few weeks, you're going to get horribly burnt out. You're going to get sick of it. Like, I love pot noodles occasionally, but I'm not going to eat like 500 in a row. Or it's like one protein shake is good, right? Or you don't drink the whole tub. You're going to be sick.
I think there was what was it? I was listening to a podcast with the My First Million, who were interviewing some guys. Don't actually know what they do, but they basically like interviewed Tim Ferriss. They've like worked with Mr. Beast, or like followed him around and that sort of thing. And one of their main highlights from just like hanging out and chatting with Tim Ferriss was that he was like, if you do one thing every day in your life, which is small, but like takes away a little bit of your energy, like over like many years, like that will just compound. Like that cost compounds. And like sometimes I feel away with engaging. Like obviously you need to engage. You've got to put your reps in. You've got to nurture your following. But you definitely, you got to be wary of like literally just getting sucked into it, being on it for like engaging like 2 hours a day or something. Like I get it to like supercharge your growth, maybe early on at the start. But yeah, it's probably not sustainable. And ultimately, like, once again, like, I mean, I've been obsessed with My First Million, but Sean Puri was on about like how he works with content. And he was like, when he got started with the Milk Road to create his business, like everyone was telling him like, mate, you have to just stay consistent. Post every day, engage, like you just have to like keep doing that, stay consistent. And he was like, I'm the least consistent guy in the whole world. Like I can't do this. And so like in the end, what he ended up leading towards was just fucking like he'd do posts and he'd be fairly consistent. But it was just basically writing bangers. And he was like, there's probably about 4 tweets, which got me like my entire following of like 400,000 people. So he was just like, there's 2 routes. So like, it's probably the best is probably somewhere in the middle. Well, yeah, you want to be writing tweets every day, like all this sort of thing. But you also want to be like also like writing those pieces of content which like really bang and bring in the big following too. Yeah. Which is like that in and of itself is hard. Like it's easier just to be consistent. But I think that's another thing to bear in mind as well. It's like spending time to actually write out, which is something like I feel like I could get a lot better with too. It's just spending time to actually write out something a bit longer, something that actually moves the needle more than simply like just 3 tweets a day, basically.
Yeah. I think
Just to add to
as
that
well, like,
really quickly.
Yeah, you go.
I was just going to say, so if you are starting out, you do have to comment a bit more. It's a necessary evil. You've got to do a lot more engagement. But when you get to, you've got a few thousand followers, how much time does it take to leave 100 comments? Like, imagine if you just did 30 and put some time you spent on that 70 into writing bangers. Because if a banger is a banger, then no one gives a shit if you commented on their stuff. They will engage. People will engage with it because it's good.
Yeah. Or like,
it's almost like
post a space or like record a video or something. Just do something like that. Because then you get better at like spaces, which is much harder than leaving comments.
Absolutely.
No, I was just going to say, it's almost like the cold outreach method, but you're doing it for followers. Like, cold outreach is good, it's got its place, but like if your personal brand is resolved, like if your business revolves around your personal brand, like ultimately what's going to move the needle more is writing really good content, which then brings in those leads, than spending like 4 hours every day doing cold DMs, because at the end you've just got a few clients. Whereas if you do the content base, you've also got a bigger following, which has loads of other benefits, as well as landing those 4 clients. And I think the same can almost be said with content. You can comment like 500 comments a day and grow fast, but you could also just like focus. You're probably using it more time per follower than if you focus some of that energy on actually just writing like the longer form, really, really great content, and then using that to push you forwards, which like also builds more authority than just writing comments as well.
Agree.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so lesson 4, test like hell. Test a bunch of stuff, see what works, and double down. One thing he's seen that's working well is more digestible tweets seem to be working the best. So the shorter and punchier the post, the more retweets and engagement it gets. I think with it, testing a bunch of stuff and seeing what works is really important, because my old clients just come to me and be like, oh, should I do this or do this? I'm like, do both. And that's how you find out which one works, right? Because otherwise you're just guessing. So what do you think about that one?
I think, yeah, test, but at the same time, something I like to do is just see like what's working anyway that other people are doing. Because everyone is testing everything constantly. I can just see what other people are doing, see what's working, and then take that. And actually, like, I hate to disagree with Justin, obviously, but shorter things for me don't do better. For me, my long form tweets do miles better than the short stuff. And I think even if a short form tweet goes viral, like, I don't think I would rather get 30 followers from a really good long form story than like 60, 70 followers from a 1 or 2 liner junk tweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, agree with that. I mean, as you said, like every post you see is almost a test. Like you can see what the results of it are. If you see one format's done well, you're like welcome to take that. I know it's weird. I don't feel like I'm that surgical with my tweets to like properly test. Other than, as you say, you just see what works. Like, the long forms are doing quite well. Should probably push more of that. But as for like whether it's like a long tweet or like a bullet point tweet or slightly longer one, like it's hard to tell because I feel like there's so many other variables bar it being a bullet point. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, how good was the hook? Like, what are the actual points? How have you finished it?
Yeah.
Like having that one finisher line being really, really good might like completely change the tweet. So it just being like, oh, it's a bullet point one. Yeah, I'd say it's quite hard to just be like, oh, like, yeah, it's hard to like make hard and fast decisions from that. I'd say it feels a lot more nuanced, almost like it's like art in a way, isn't it? It's like art and a science at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, long forms are way harder than short form as well. Like, if you really want to learn to write, just write long form every day. Try it. Also, what was I going to say? Now it's gone. Oh, no, it was another good thing about testing like hell is having a group chat where you share ideas with people every day. Because, like, we put, like, hundreds of messages in the group every day. A lot of it's, like, chatting shit, but a lot of it's actually good, actionable advice. And, like, I'm getting your data and I'm giving you mine. And then it's just, like, 3x the data, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you see your friends post something and it does really good, don't copy and paste the tweet, for God's sake, but maybe the topic is a viral topic, or the big idea of the tweet was a high performing idea, so you can make your own thing around it. Don't copy and paste stuff that works then.
The best one is Seb. There's an account out there, and he's literally just copy and pasting the exact words that he put in the tweet.
It's not a way to build, it's just a waste of time. You look like a loser when you do that.
Yeah, I just quickly add to that group thing, like, it's always easy to forget, like, what it was exactly that helped you in the early days. I think having that squad, like, there's always been, like, some form of group chat that I've been in or, like, made from the very start where you just chat shit, you make friends. And that helps so much more, because I think more and more having that peer network is the thing that's going to really help you, especially on X, like with the spaces, like being able to just partner, being able to like drop, like we were doing, Parker's hosting us for a space next Saturday, and just being able to like drop people messages like that, I think like makes a huge difference. So I say definitely like build your tribe early and then expand it out, and start like, just start trying to connect with as many like interesting, cool people who are further ahead of you as you can, and of course like people are behind you too.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people struggle with finding a tribe though, right? Like, we were lucky to come across each other early, really got along, but a lot of people are struggling with that. So have you got any tips for anyone?
Yeah, I mean, probably just starting early and continue to do it. Like the reason why I built the first group chat is because you had the group chat in Heartbeat for Growth Coast, and I was like, fuck, like everyone's like chatting, networking here. I don't have that yet. I need to like make a Telegram chat outside of that, because I couldn't reveal myself in Harvey, of course. So like made that 5-person group chat, whatever. We stuck with it for a while. Not everyone stuck around, and then eventually like we sort of just moved on, and everyone else sort of stayed there. So we made another group chat with a few others in. That went on for a while, and then eventually Glenn popped into that chat, and then we ended up making another group chat with us three, and so that's that. So I think it's just a matter of, you just need to put yourself out there. Like, if you're not out there, then no one knows you exist. If no one knows you exist, there's nowhere you're going to find your tribe. And I mean, even like, I remember like Dom, I was speaking to Dom recently, and he had like one rant or something on a thing, or he was just basically talking about how he couldn't find his tribe, and it was just like, he's just like, how does this happen, sort of thing. Like, you guys have obviously got each other, but it seems impossible. And now he's actually like found someone, they're really, really good friends, they're partnering together, and they're just like, he's like, okay, I understand what you guys mean now. Like, it feels really good. And you kind of realize how good X is for networking once you start finding those people.
Yeah, it's amazing for networking. In terms of tips, like, some people tend to production line the networking, and they get on calls with like absolutely everybody, and they do like 10 calls a day. Only thing I would say about that is it feels kind of like we've all been on calls where it feels like a bit, I don't know, forced. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I couldn't give my best self 10 calls in a row. Like, I'd be doing it for the sake of it. Like, you know, it's like when you'd make 12 double cheeseburgers at the same time at McDonald's. Like, you just slap the cheese on, put the pickles on, they fall off, whatever. You don't care. You're not really like networking genuinely. You're doing it just to like, because you're supposed to do it. So I only go on calls now. People like think, you know, they're funny, they're entertaining, they're higher up than me in terms of knowledge, and there's something I could learn from them. Yeah.
I was just thinking there, like, yeah, well, two things. So one, obviously, like, the tip, you have to be curious. Like, there's so many people who hop on calls and just want to chat about themselves. And it's like, after a while, like, it's interesting because you get to learn from them, whatever. But ultimately, if you want to build a relationship and not just be a one-way thing with your friends, you got to show you're curious. But I was just thinking, like, Glenn, you've got like the most classic come up entrepreneur story, like all time at the end of this. Like, I've worked in McDonald's, and then I've also worked at the council, like grinding away in this cubicle for acting. And then I like try blogging and match betting, and then like boom, like hit X, huge. Mate, I can't. Yeah, I can't wait for like the fucking mega story long form thread or whatever.
There was a point there was a point when I wasn't in high school anymore because I dropped out and I was full-time flipping burgers. I know everyone's
really?
like, oh, I flipped burgers. It's like, yeah, you flipped them and you like were in school. I wasn't in school. I was a burger flipper for like 3 months. And then I paid for my master's degree through gambling proceeds alone. No, these are the different things. It's been a funny story. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Tats, we actually had a really good 9 to 5. It like wasn't amazingly paid, but we were learning really valuable skills and stuff. This was just a higher like opportunity, wasn't it?
Yeah, we were mega lucky. I almost feel like that almost helped launch like ourselves into Twitter as well, because it was like basics of newsletter, email marketing, basics of copywriting, how to run paid ads, like, and even just being connected to like people in that copywriting market area and the whole digital marketing world. Yeah, it was like, I'd say for anyone in a 9 to 5, like, and you're young, like try and get into a 9 to 5 where it feels like you're learning. Like, it's fine to sacrifice low pay as long as you're actually learning in a way, like a skill or something that's going to be useful to you later on. Because once you have that skill, like it doesn't matter if there's like $0 in the bank account, like you're going to have that skill for the rest of your life and you're just going to be able to build on top of it.
Yeah, that's the best thing I ever did. Daz, do you want to touch
You
on
guys
the
9 to
story
5, I
of...
was always slightly jealous of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It would have been
a lot of
class
it's
for you
like the people used to, like in work as well. Like we had a really good group of people working there. Everyone was fun. We'd go for drinks after work and stuff. Like I had tats. Like that's a massive part of it as well. That's one thing I do miss from the 9 to 5.
See, mine was the 9 to 5 where you would all, after COVID, we'd all come in, we'd all sit like 5 desks apart from each other. 12 o'clock would have come, everyone would get the sad lunchbox out that's got like the ham sandwich and the cling film, the banana and the frube. And like some people eat the dinner at their desks. And there's like the one, they put a coffee machine in after like 3 years. We had nothing because it's public sector. And they put this coffee machine in. It was this pissy, like acidic coffee. But everyone was like, oh my God. Even I was like, oh, this is so amazing. We have a coffee machine now. This is freaking awesome. Like paper cups and everyone, someone uses your mug as well. And you're like, man, get off my mug.
Man, that coffee machine made us sales. There were people who said like they related to your coffee machine. Like I think it was one sentence when you like the fucking like shitty coffee from this coffee machine on the sales page, and someone's like, mate, when I read that, it fucking hit home. And I was because of
it. You gotta be vivid.
Yeah, that's one big thing again from our job as well. Is like we had like a Sage coffee machine. Everyone got like the best laptops and everything, and it really did help. Like I was like, I just want to stay here because I got a nice laptop. Like that's cool.
Yeah, you felt looked after. You definitely felt looked after. Like, I didn't even drink that much coffee before going there, but the coffee machine was so good that you just grind it and then do it that I, like, started drinking a lot of coffee there. And I think also, the energy as well. Like, the energy there was, like, you come together, like, you're doing this thing, it's cool, like, you're sort of, like, striving for something in the world, which, like, it didn't sound like from our chat earlier. It's like...
The energy of the council is like you kind of do your work and then you go on, it hits 12 o'clock and you're just on BBC News, Sky Football for the remaining 4 hours. And every time someone walks past, you just tab out and like pretend you're writing an email.
Well,
and like people send you an email and they flag it as important and it's not important. And you're like, oh, go away. What are you doing?
How many years did you spend there?
Not fun.
How many years? So actually, you'll be pleased to know, before I worked at a county council, I worked at a town council as well. So my entire professional office career has been a town council and then a county council. So I've been a loyal public servant for 4 years.
Could have gone to city council after that.
Yeah, I could have made the big break.
Not that.
Yeah, Pens is good. Maybe I'll run for office next time so I can be on the other side of it. The growth family candidate.
Yeah.
Glenn for president. Prime Minister.
Before we go into the final section, Tats, can you share that story of the Dakota cohort and you being a ghost? Because I think it's a really funny one to share. I think we can share it.
Yeah, right. So how it all kicked off is we were in work. We were actually at the time like classic, following like Ayman Ghazi and all that sort of dude. And we were like, we're going to set up like a social media marketing agency. Like we were looking around at like the businesses, we were like tracking like whether they're running ads, and we were like, oh my God, like they're so big, they're not running ads. Like we could be doing that for them. And then in the midst of that, like Dylan was like, oh, you've got to start a Twitter account. I was like, why? The only thing I use Twitter for was like monitoring crypto and shit like that. And in the end, he convinced me. And in that time, it was also like, you should listen to this dude, Dakota Robertson. And I was like, who is this dude? And he's like, yeah, he just ghostwriting. And I was like, absolutely no idea what ghostwriting is, but it sounds cool. And honestly, like I feel like that's one reason why people love the idea of ghostwriting, is like not even necessarily because like they've thought that much about what it entails, but just because like, oh, I'm a ghostwriter, like is a cool title. Like that's why it attracts like so many like 19-year-old boys, because it's like, oh bro, I could be a ghostwriter. But so then this cohort popped up, but I couldn't get in a sales call to get it, but Dylan did. And so in the end, like he had the call and I was like in the background listening in on the laptop, like just on the other side of the screen, and it was Taylor taking the sales call, and I was like scribbling fucking questions over, like sliding them over for Dylan to ask Taylor. And then like once cohort kicked off, I obviously like could not. I was in it, but logged in on Dylan's account. So then I like probably spoke to Kurt a bit, asked him the odd question, and said stop. But like for the whole 3 months of it, like he didn't have a clue. And like we even held a space with him as well after all of that happened. And he still, like, even then, like he had no idea that he'd literally been the guy that sort of mentored me in a way to get where we are. And that was also why I was so terrified of like sharing my story on Twitter, because my story included Dakota. Like I couldn't really tell that story without Dakota. I couldn't say like, yeah, I just came to Twitter and like, yeah, I knew literally everything what to do, and I just fucking popped off after a month and it worked. Like there needs to be like paying $3,000 each to get in a cohort. It's quite a big part of it. So in the end, like during the launch of Growth Army, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna have to like send Dakota a video. So I just sent him like a 3-minute video, whatever it was, quite long. But just going through like everything he'd done, how grateful I was, all that sort of thing. And then he like read it and ignored it. And I was like, fuck, I've absolutely fucked it. So I even sent a follow-up like voice message like, fucking chicken. And I was like, oh, it's okay. We're like, I'm sorry if this is like this. And then I said that. And then he read and ignored that. And I was like, I'm genuinely fucked it. He's got 250,000 followers. He's fucking jacked. I'm fucked. And then so I like ignored it and I didn't think about it. And then like on the last night of the Growth Army launch, he sent in like a full video. Just so sad and being like, yo guys, like I respect the hustle. You guys are doing so great. Like this is hearing all those words is worth more to me like than the money that you would have paid to get in. And that's ultimately like what this game's about. And he was like, yeah, I understand. Like it's two guys just trying to make it out of your jobs and that sort of thing, like sharing resources, all that sort of thing. It's like exactly the kind of thing that I would do. And then like, I think 10 minutes after that, we were like, fuck boys, we've got too many applicants for Growth Army. Let's close this thing down early. Got the GIF up of fucking American Psycho. So that was, yeah, probably like one of the most satisfying like few hours of my life. Yeah, that was the summary.
Man, I remember watching that video Dakota sent you, and I was like knackered, but like I almost cried watching it. I was like, "Fuck, that's so nice."
It was so nice. Fucking.
He cemented himself as a legend in my eyes at that point.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh shit, we got one more lesson to go through as well. So lesson 5, be patient. So tweets are acting differently now. They used to explode out the gates, slow down, and then just stop after 24 hours. Now it's a lot more like LinkedIn, where it's kind of like you pick up steam slowly, and then like after 24 hours, you still get a lot of like retention after that. Are you guys seeing that?
I completely agree. I don't even have anything to add. My tweets used to explode out the gate, and then they would just slowly die. But now, yeah, they're slow burners now, long fuses.
Yeah, it's nice. Like even like sometimes 3 days after, I'll still see like a tweet getting in some likes. And especially like if you're replying back to your comments, like I feel like that just like gives it a little nitrous oxide boost. So yeah, just having a session where you reply back definitely helps as well. And I think it's also more the case of like long form than like individual tweets as well, like long form especially seems to run over the next day and get those extra impressions.
Speaking of long forms, Glenn, your one yesterday made me absolutely piss myself about the moped. So Glenn's got like a massive fear of mopeds and like driving a moped. Do you want to share the story? Just share the story. It's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, go on. It's not that I'm necessarily like terrified of riding mopeds, but my fiance works.
He's terrified.
Yeah. Because my fiance works in the radiation department, so she does X-rays, and she just says there's constantly people coming in, blue lighted in, just like 57 different fractures, motorbike every single time, or like didn't wear a helmet, is dead, all that kind of stuff. So we're in Hue in Vietnam, and then we're like, okay, right, we'll get a boat up the canal. Sounds nice. Be a lovely little boat ride, bring a picnic, whatever. Hotel says, right, it's 10 minutes away. We'll call you the transport as well. We'll sort that out for you. Motorbike turns up. I was like, well, I wanted a taxi. I don't really want to get on the back of the motorbike. So I put my fiance on it, and I was like, oh, you go first. Be a gentleman. Ladies first. See you there. So she gets there. Obviously, everything went fine for her. And then, yeah, he comes and he just looks at me and he's like, well, get on the motorbike. I don't know how to sit on the back of a motorbike. So I was just thinking back to all the films you see where the woman has got the hand like that on the guy's waist. And I was like, okay, that must be how you do it. So I literally swing one leg over in my shorts. He gives me a helmet, which is too big, too small. So it's like sat on my head like the top of a boiled egg. So that's bulging off like a mushroom. And then, yeah, I just hold his waist like that, like literally like hand either side. like he was like, I could just feel my hands, like, I don't know, feeling it. He didn't like it. I didn't like it either. And then we just went there and I was like this, like, holding his waist. And then, my girlfriend was like, why the hell did you do that? No one does that. And then the whole day after, I didn't see a single person doing it, apart from like loving couples is the only people I saw doing it. So, whatever. Move on. I look stupid.
I'd pay good money to see that.
Was it strategic? Was it strategic, lad? Were you trying to
it was deliberate. It was an engagement play, so I could get leads from it. That's what it was.
Oh, mate, it's the hands like this. Like, not even like holding around. Like, I mean, it's
like
just,
on his waist, either side.
Your big fucking hands on this little Vietnamese dude. He's like, who is this? And he even tipped him at the end. He gave him extra money. So it's kind of like, look, I might have groped you a bit, but it's like,
tipped him real nice. Didn't looked at the floor, handed him the money.
Were you like twice his size as well?
Oh, God.
I wouldn't say I was twice his size, but I'm like 95 kilos and they're all like 62 kg here. So, My fiance was like, well, there's handles on the back of the seat, didn't you see? And I was like, oh, no. And then all I can see now every time I see a moped is the handles on the back of the seat. Like, I would look so cool if I had like my hands on the back handle, like chilling on the bike.
It's like Toad giving a fucking piggyback to what's it? Not Donkey Kong. What's the big one? Browser. That's Bowser.
Yeah.
That's it. Not Browser.
Yeah.
That's the way to turn an L into a W, because that post was fucking brilliant. All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Growth Army podcast. That was episode 1. We'll be doing these every week. Thank you.